Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is a fun one. We are doing a review on the brand new Naked Honey palette from Urban Decay. This is a brand new launch to their Naked line. This is the Naked Honey palette. I have it on my eyes. I'll be showing you guys how I got this tutorial. Also getting into my review on this palette. We'll do swatches. I'll go over pricing and everything like that. So if that sounds good, why don't we go ahead and get started. So starting off, Urban Decay did actually send me this palette over in PR, so I did receive this early. It does say that it will be available on September 13th on Urban Decay's website as well as Sephora. It looks like there was a much later date for Ulta, so it looks like it's just gonna be like Sephora for a bit. I wanna say it was like the 23rd when it was going into Ulta, but I'll have all of the dates linked down below. So here is the palette right here. This is the Urban Decay Naked Honey palette. Naked is kind of what the Urban Decay brand I feel like is known for. Their Naked palettes. They had the original Naked, the Naked 2, they've had Naked Smoky, Heat, a ton of different Naked palettes at this point. And recently, I think the last one that they did was maybe their Naked Cherry. I want to say that was the last one, but this one is their newest edition. It is the Naked Honey. I really love the packaging on this one. I think it's a little bit different than their other ones. It has a really nice just like wave about it, and it just looks luxurious. I really like that. So obviously it is going to be pretty standard for your normal Urban Decay palettes. It's going to have 14 different shades on the inside. You also do have a brush as well as a mirror. This is going to retail for $49, and like I said, it will be available on the 13th. So I've had the chance to play with this now a few times. I've used it 3 different times on the eyes. I'm going to show you guys how I got this makeup look in a minute, but I've really enjoyed the formula of this palette so far. I am someone who doesn't necessarily love the Naked formula. Like the original Naked 2 and the Naked I have in my collection, but I don't really reach into them that often because they're not my favorite formula when it comes to eyeshadows. But I do think that over time, I think that these Naked palettes have gotten better and better. I really do like the layout of this palette. I think it's really cohesive. I think you can create a lot of different looks with it. The only con I do have with the formula of the shadows is the shimmers. I feel like, in my opinion, they don't work very well on their own unless if you wet the brush, which happens to me a lot with a lot of palettes, but to me they're just not really a foiled metallic until you wet your brush. If you go in with your finger, they're a little bit more foiled, but they're best with a wet brush. So keep that in mind. I also don't think that they apply the best with this brush. I know they have like a shader side here on the end, and you would think that that would be for the shimmers, but it really doesn't work very well for the shimmers. So I recommend just using like a synthetic flat brush and spritzing your brush first and then going in with the shadows, and it really just makes them that much more pigmented. The mattes, however, are true to Urban Decay's mattes. I think that they have a really great matte formula. They're very easy to blend on the eyes. And again, this is kind of like a staple if you are really into the Naked palettes, you own all of them, maybe you want to collect it, or if you're just really into this color story, it's definitely a fun color story. I wouldn't say that it's anything necessarily unique. There's a lot of palettes out that have kind of this color range, but I do think it's fun to see something different from them and the honey, and I think that it's a cool concept. So inside of the palette, you actually get 5 different shimmer shades. There is one satin, this one right here that I noticed has a bit of a sheen to it, so I would consider that one a satin. And then you have the other 5 shimmers, and then you have 6 different matte shades in here. So it definitely has a variety of mattes and shimmers. And again, I think when you look at this palette, I think a lot of the shades kind of look similar, but when you do swatch them, you are able to see a bit of a difference in each one of the shades. So I'll go ahead and show you the swatches of it now. So here are swatches of all 12 of the shades. This is the way that they appear in the palette. I did have to go a little bit more in with this second shade right here. That one is a little bit sheer, so I did go in twice with that one, but the rest of these is just one swipe. As you can tell, they're very pigmented, and the mattes are quite pigmented as well. So you can kind of see the differences when I meant that some of the shades look similar, like these 2 golds look very close in the pan, but they're very different when you do go ahead and swatch them on your arm. So now that we've went ahead and went over the swatches, I am going to go ahead and start on the eye look so you guys can kind of see how this came together. And then this full face look will be over on my Instagram. I'm going to have it up in a few days, so if you're curious on this full makeup look, that will be over on my Instagram, but I'm going to show you guys how I got this eye look using the Naked Honey palette. So I'm first just going to go in with some of the Urban Decay Potion Primer, and this is just the original one here. I'm going to use this as my eyeshadow base, so I'm just going in with a light amount of this. And we'll use this just to help prep our lids. I don't normally love this primer. I've had it in my collection before and I've decluttered it, but They actually sent it when they sent over this package, so I figured I'd just go ahead and use it with the palette because I know that a lot of people do like this primer and a lot of people have this primer. I'm kind of just patting that in to cover up our redness. I don't love it because it doesn't always cover up like all of my veins. I feel like it's just a very light primer, so I'm gonna apply a little bit more. Okay, so I'd say that's pretty good for our primer. And next I'm actually gonna go into the shade Flyby. It's the white shade in the palette. And I'm actually just gonna set my lids with that shade just before we go in with anything else, just so I have a nice base to work with. So I'm kind of just gonna tap this all over my lid just to set that primer down. That shade does have a tiny bit of shimmer in it, but it doesn't bother me because of the other shades we're gonna go into. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with my very first shade, which is gonna be Sweet. That's gonna be the next one in the palette. And I'm gonna work this shade into my crease. I'm just using a blending brush from Morphe. So I'm just gonna begin to tap this in and then blend it into my crease. I like the way these two shades look together. I feel like if you were to just do this as an eye look, it'd be a super easy, just like quick little eye look with just like the shimmer and then this in the crease. I think it looks really pretty together. So now that we've got that shade, I'm gonna keep working down. So we're gonna go into Swarm, which is this like yellowy mustard shade. Same brush, and I'm just gonna again begin to work that into the crease. We're gonna kind of just deepen this up a little bit with this shade. It's probably my favorite shade in the palette. I think it's really pretty. So now with the fluffy side of the brush from the palette, I'm actually gonna go into the shade Hive down here. And I'm gonna use that to further deepen this up a little bit. So we're pretty much just going down still. I just skipped a couple of these shimmer shades. So I'm just gonna work this right into my crease just to further blend and kind of define this outer edge a little more. And then with the more dense side of the brush, I'm gonna go into Sting, which is the very last brown shade. And I'm actually going to further up just this outer edge right here with this. So just to deepen it up, kind of going like a little V right here and place that and then begin to blend it out here on the edge. So now that we've got all of our mattes in place, we're gonna go in with our shimmers. So I'm actually gonna go into the shade Golden, which is really gorgeous gold in the palette. I mentioned earlier that I do not really prefer the shimmers on their own. I like them with a wet brush. So I'm just gonna go in with this Real Techniques shader brush and I'm gonna spritz a couple sprays of Max Fix Plus because I feel like this really makes a difference with these shimmers. And I'm going to begin to put that on my lid. So I want this to kind of be in the center, and then I'm going to put the more golden shade on the inner corner. So I'm kind of just going to put it right here just on the center of my lid. And then for the inner corner, I'm going to go into the shade Honey, which is just a little bit more of a yellow gold. And again, I'm going to spritz my brush because like I said, we need it with these. And I'm going to apply this one just to the inner corner portion. Tell like a slight difference between the two shades. This one just has a little bit more of a yellow punch to it. So now that we've pretty much got our lid down, I'm gonna go in and go on the lower lash line. So I'm pretty much just gonna go into all of the same shades. I'm gonna start with Sweet and sweep that across my lower lash. And then we'll begin to go ahead and build up the other shades. So going in with Sweet first, then I'm gonna move on to Swarm. And then with the brown, I'm just going just on this outer edge. I'm not really bringing that shade all the way in. And then for eyeliner, I am going to take the brown Urban Decay Demolition Liner and use this in my waterline. And then I'm going to go ahead and pop on my lashes, and that will be it for this eye look. So jumping into my final thoughts on the Honey palette from Urban Decay, the Naked Honey palette, I think that this is a really good buy. I really like this palette. I've used it quite a few times now, and I've liked every look that I've came up with. I think it's a cohesive palette. I do wish maybe there was like a few more yellows in here, but I do really think it's a fun palette. I think you'll get a lot of use out of this one if you do purchase it. The formula of the shadows is really nice in here. It's very true to their Naked palettes. I myself am not a huge fan of these, but I do really love this one. I think it's a really nice palette, and I definitely would recommend it if you are looking into it. I will have all of the dates and everything down in the description box for you guys to go ahead and purchase it. Comment down below if you are planning to. Let me know what you think of this eye look we created, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, friends.